Viking history, myths and facts. The Vikings were a seafaring tribe of traders, explorers and warriors who were renowned throughout the world and were active from the late 8th to the early 11th century. They had discovered the Americas long before Columbus and had advanced as far east as the far reaches of Russia. Çoğu zaman, daha medeni ulusları hazine ve kadın uğruna kılıçtan geçirip talan eden vahşi kimseler olarak görülseler de, Vikinglerin kültürü ve inançları oldukça çeşitliydi. Savaşçılıklarıyla ünlü bu insanlar, geçtikleri topraklarda ekonomiden askerliğe birçok alanda değişime de imkan tanımıştı. Viking Age. Many historians commonly associate the name Viking with the Norse term Vikinger, meaning pirate. However, in reality the term referred to overseas exploration and was used by the Norse as a verb for men who went Viking in the summer. Although many believe that these expeditions involved sacking monasteries and cities along the coast, many of the expeditions were really about trade and recruiting mercenaries. According to Angelo Forte, Richard D. Oram and Frederick Peterson, authors of Viking Empires, the Viking Age generally refers to the period from 800 AD, a few years after the earliest recorded attack, to the 1050s, a few years before the Norman invasion in 1066. During this period, the Norse had reached every corner of northern Europe, while many other nations found their shores ravaged by the Vikings. Records from the period show that Vikings were in Baghdad to trade in goods such as furs, tusks, and seal oil. Viking ships. At the heart of Viking culture is undoubtedly the Viking ship. These extraordinary vehicles, especially the Viking sailboat, shaped the lives of the Norse who called the sea home and changed the course of European history. The Norse shipbuilding skills, perfected over 10 centuries, enabled the development of a wide range of vehicles, from small fishing boats and big-bellied freighters to the lightning-fast sailing ships used in raids. Regardless of size, most ships were designed to be narrow and have a low draft, the vertical distance between the bottom of the ship and the waterline, making them particularly suited to oceans and rivers. The Vikings' mastery of shipbuilding reached its peak in the 7th century, when they invented the hull, a structural element under the main hull that extended from bow to stern. This feature increased speed and stability and prevented unwanted lateral movements. The addition of the hull, mast, and sail allowed the Norse to make long voyages across the North Atlantic. Today, these vehicles are regarded as technological marvels that revolutionized design. To begin the shipbuilding process, the Vikings chopped the wood from freshly felled trees into small pieces. About 20 large oak trees could be cut for one ship. The wood was shaped and carefully arranged so that the planks fit together perfectly in a lap construction. In lap ship construction, the outside is started first and then the rib is fitted. The ship was covered with a waterproof mixture of animal hair, wool or moss soaked in tar and stabilized with iron rivets. The result was an incredibly fast and flexible Viking sailboat that nothing could catch. So the Vikings crossed the seas in ships pulled by determined rowers, probably supported by large sails made of cotton. Viking sailing ships were steered by a tail at the stern rather than a rudder. By the mid-9th century, Norse villages and communities banded together to build ships to increase their wealth through plunder. The Vikings brutally attacked Nantes on the west coast of France in 842, and their ability to move easily on rivers with their ships allowed them to move as far inland as Paris, Limoges, Orleans, Tours, and Nîmes. The Vikings valued art as much as they valued sailing. The prow of Viking sailing ships was decorated with carved dragon heads, which were believed to ward off evil spirits. The large square red-striped sail with the dragon motif on it was known as the signature of the Vikings. This sail struck fear into the hearts of Europeans for 3 centuries. New World discoveries. Vikings established colonies on the west coast of Greenland during the 10th century. The Viking sagas tell of their voyages from their colonies in Greenland to the New World. These sagas mention places called Helgeland, thought to be Baffin Island, Markland, thought to be Labrador, and Vinland, a hidden place that some archaeologists think is Newfoundland. Today, the only confirmed Viking settlement in the New World is L'Anse aux Meadows on the northern tip of Newfoundland. This site was excavated in the 1960s. In addition, archaeologists have recently discovered 3 other possible Viking sites in Canada. 2 of the 3 possible sites are located in Newfoundland and the other on Baffin Island in the Canadian Arctic. Newfoundland'da bulunan muhtemel Viking yerleşimlerinden biri Newfoundland'ın güneyindeki Point Rosne'de yer alıyor. Arkeologlar bu yerleşimde turbadan yapılmış bir yapının yanında duran balçıklı demirden bir ocağa rastladı. Newfoundland'daki diğer yerleşimde ise rengeyi gibi büyük hayvanları avlamak için kullanılmış olabilecek bir dizi tuzak çukuru keşfedildi. Bu tuzak çukurları düz bir çizgi üzerine kazılmış, arkeologlar Vikinglerin hayvanları içine düşüp öldürülecekleri bu çukurlara yönlendirdiğine inanıyor. Üçüncü muhtemel Viking yerleşimi ise Baffin adasındaki Nanook'ta yer alıyor. Araştırmacılar bu yerleşimde metal üretiminde kullanılmış olabilecek nesnelere ve Vikingler tarafından inşa edilmiş olması muhtemel bir yapının kalıntılarına rastladı. Viking legends. Many modern perceptions of the Vikings have their roots in Catholic propaganda. After the sacking of Christian settlements and the loss of countless relics and treasures, the Catholic leadership found the solution in demonizing the Vikings. Until Queen Victoria's accession to the throne in Britain, the Vikings were portrayed as savages and barbarians. Throughout the 19th and 20th centuries, perceptions changed to such an extent that the Vikings were glamorized as noble warriors with horned helmets, with a glorious culture and valor that struck fear into the enemy on the battlefield. The following are common Viking myths that have been proven to be demonstrably false according to the historical record, the result of the aforementioned misunderstandings. 1. Vikings wore horned helmets. Traditionally, Vikings did not wear headdresses or wore simple helmets made of leather and metal, sometimes with a face shield. The idea of the horned helmet dates back to the Victorian Viking revival. 2. They had unkempt hair and beards and were dirty. Archaeologists regularly find combs, spoons, and other personal grooming tools that point to the Vikings' penchant for personal hygiene. 3. They spent all their time looting and fighting. Although raiding provided an important source of income for the Vikings, many of them had farms where they lived, which their wives took care of during the Viking season. When the men returned from their plundering expeditions, they would take back the farm work they had left to their wives for a while. 4. Vikings always lived together. Due to the unfavorable geographical location, the Scandinavians had spread out considerably to preserve the limited arable land. In addition to the harshness of the climate and soil conditions, the spread of Christianity led to a significant division of these people, who still worshipped the traditional Norse pantheon. 5. They were big and muscular. Because of the short summer, it was difficult to plant crops and grow food, and resources were always limited. As a result of limited food resources, many Scandinavians were much smaller than previously thought. The harsh living conditions in the Scandinavian region made its people harsh too. Many Vikings suffered from scarce resources and made their homes far away without unified leadership. During the Viking Age, the Scandinavians pressed harder on the outside world and earned themselves a reputation that went beyond barbarism. While some Vikings were tempted by the lure of riches, many preferred more peaceful economic relations with neighboring nations. In reality, the Viking Age did not come to an impressive end. The kingdoms of Scandinavia were culturally assimilated and gradually incorporated into the larger political organization of European Christianity. Don't forget to follow and watch out for virgins.